Welcome back.
Whew.
Episode 42.
Let's go.
Yes.
Come on.
The old guys are traveling this week.
Oh my God, you really said it, Tyler.
First thing out of the gate.
The first
The
sentence
first
is a roast.
out of his mouth. Old guys traveling.
We'll see what happens when they get back.
Well, Tyler's still here.
Jeremy and Keith are traveling to and from Phoenix right now. So, hopefully they're enjoying the warmer weather.
Yep.
We hold down the fork.
Hold down the fork.
Hold down the fork.
They'd probably rather be in the warm weather
European
than be
saints.
here. So,
Yeah.
sure they're not.
I don't
caring
blame
too
them.
much, but
Pretty cold.
I
at
don't
the
blame them one
moment.
bit.
Yeah.
so they will be back next week. But in honor of episode 42,
Oh, yeah.
I'm going away from my fun facts since you guys keep saying that they're not fun facts.
Because you cannot keep up with my actual fun facts, Tyler. Let's be honest.
So I'm going back to sports, and I think Jeremy will be pretty pleased with this one. But
Okay.
Jackie Robinson,
No idea who that is.
baseball,
Okay.
famous.
Well, I step out of this.
Have you
this
been
discussion.
to a baseball game?
Yes, I do.
Did you
As a matter of
notice
fact,
the
that
42 up on the stadium?
in the Twins Stadium.
His jersey's retired for every single team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
You'll,
No, I know.
you'll have to Google him after.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I have to.
Jackie Robinson.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yes.
I think that's common knowledge when I see how you look at me, so I will look it up.
Other news. Did you guys watch the Super Bowl?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Who are you guys rooting for? Is the real question.
It's an easy. Lisa, you should answer this first. I want to hear your answer.
Well, I went to a Super Bowl party that was pretty much, we were people from Kansas, so all were in for the Chiefs, and we actually had some Kansas City barbecue
You
as
did?
well, so
Wow.
we were all in for it. But actually, I mean, I do not mind. The better team should win. This is how I see it, and I do not follow it that close. But the Chiefs just won 2 times, so I think it maybe was not bad that another team kind of got the win this time.
Yep.
That's how I see it.
David?
Eagles.
You were
all the
going
way.
Eagles?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah. So
course.
we have our company started in Kansas.
Hmm.
So we have a Kansas City bias. We still have an office down there. For those of you that don't know that, so I think it was a bit of a disappointment,
Yeah.
despite the 2 times in a row already. I think the three-peat was
Expected.
yes.
Yeah.
I was
so thankful.
I
it
was
didn't
personally
happen.
torn because it would be cool to see history, right? No other team
Yep.
in history has done the three-peat, so that would have been
Yep.
cool. But then I also really love some of the players on the Eagles.
Yep.
Saquon Barkley, I think, is the one that comes to mind for most people.
Yep.
Been a lifelong Giants player and finally gets off of a terrible team and goes and wins Super Bowl first year away. So that was pretty cool.
Well, he went to high school like an hour away from Lincoln Field. Did you know that? And then he went to Penn State, obviously, in
Yep.
PA as well. So
Pretty cool.
pretty cool
Yeah.
story there.
All right. So topic for today. I want to revisit AI and DeepSeek because last week we got a lot of the big tech, if you want to group everybody into tech, big tech earnings.
Sure.
So let's talk about the earnings first, and then I want to talk about implications for DeepSeek and or against DeepSeek based on what we saw in the earnings report. So anything stood out to you guys?
I think overall, like, earnings were good, right? All of them beat their expectations.
Sure.
But I think we saw some different stock reactions to
Yes.
that. So that was different. And I think what kind of stood out a little bit or was responsible for that was the cloud businesses with Microsoft and Amazon, like Azure and stuff, that fell short of expectations. And that is where a lot of the impact of AI is expected to be seen.
Yep.
So I think that was a negative under the hood. I think overall was good, but I think you saw different reactions because of a little bit deeper into the weeds.
Yeah.
The cloud business that kind of fell short.
David?
Yeah.
Anything?
I think kind of the underlying theme for me that I was watching for was the analyst impact to AI kind of capex, right? And see if that was going to be positive. I think overall it was overwhelmingly positive, kind of the whole way around.
Yep.
Biggest loser was Alphabet, and pretty much the only one that had the Wall Street lowered their expectations for the company. So it'll be interesting, I think, going into this next quarter to see where analysts are sitting, if they're still kind of bullish on this large AI capex spend, or if we're going to start seeing a pullback.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. I thought what was interesting was cloud business for Amazon and Microsoft has for the last 5-ish years or so has always been a tailwind for them, right? They're growing at 20% plus typically, and they typically always beat the expectation as well. Now you had some changing of who had the most share in the business, right? AWS, which is Amazon's, versus Azure, which is Microsoft's. But this go around, and this is where we can also talk about, I think Keith wrote a paper on it, but like there's a whisper number out there, right? There's what the analysts have written down, which is the expectations.
But what is actually expected.
But then there's the whisper number, which is a little bit different. And so for Amazon, right, I think AWS reported 19% year-over-year growth. Analyst expectation, I think, was 20 or like 19 and a half, something like that.
Yeah.
But the whisper number was like 21, right? A little bit better. So it's always interesting to see the stock reaction after, even if they came generally in line with expectations. But a pretty big reaction lower means there was a bigger number expected out there. And the same thing with Microsoft too, right? Azure missed by, I think the growth was a 1% miss in year-over-year growth, which
does
typically
not seem a lot.
It's not a big deal usually, but when when it's a big portion of the business and you might be losing share and it doesn't grow as quickly, it puts some concerning pressures on the stock. So that was, those two reactions were the most interesting reactions to me, were Microsoft and Amazon.
Sure.
Because the rest of the report was generally pretty good. And when you start to look at what the capex outlooks were like, it was pretty good. And then the other reaction I thought was interesting was Apple.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
The report was, in my opinion, not good, but yet
I agree.
Stock reacted positively.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's interesting because they still have the ongoing China issues, which were, I think, expected that they didn't get resolved over the last quarter, but they were still persisting or got even worse. And then the iPhone, I mean, the super cycle is not this time unfolding. I think that everybody knows that by now.
Well, I wonder, do you think that the super cycle for Apple is going to be the 2025 phone?
I mean, it depends. I mean, by now, not every phone and not every product of theirs has their Apple Intelligence in there, especially in China. I think that was one part why it's bad over there, or why it continues to be bad. Certainly not the only reasons, but I think this is the first thing to integrate it and to really make it work, and to really, I don't know, people seem to not see the big advantage of Apple Intelligence yet. It's not really, they do not really market it that strong either.
Well, it just got released a couple months ago.
Right.
So it's not, and I don't think I think their version of Apple Intelligence can't be the full Apple Intelligence until these next couple of phones. Right. So they probably don't. I've seen a few ads and I'm like, nah, I don't know if that.
Here and there.
There's nothing enticing.
People aren't willing to spend that extra little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, also the lifespans of how long people do have their phones over the last decade, I think doubled or tripled from one day kind of. They really, people now really try to squeeze more life out of their iPhones. So, and I'm not sure if by now, I mean, maybe something great happens until the next introduction in fall, but I don't.
Yeah.
So far, it was a little bit underwhelming.
I mean, how long have you had your current phone from Apple, David?
3 years.
3 years.
3 years.
Same. I'm on year 3.
Upgrade.
Yep. No plans to upgrade either.
Not right
now. Not even when they launched the next phone in September, which is another 7 months from now. But
the difference is you're talking an $1,100 phone, right? You know what I mean? Like, is it really worth it?
Hold on, I got to turn this TV off. It's flickering too much and it's
so
bothering me.
They announced the Apple Intelligence rollout in China with Alibaba.
Yeah.
Is that going to turn things around? Because China weakness has been a theme there, right?
I mean, obviously, I mean, they released or they commented that their iPhone sales were better in a region where Apple Intelligence was already in there compared to regions where it was not. I mean, obviously, when you get more, probably, hopefully get better sales. So even if they resolved it now in China, there's a general shift from the consumers away from Western brands, and they seem to get more comfortable with their own Asian manufactured phones and brands. So I think it's not only that. I think the underlying issue is a little bit deeper than that, and I don't know if that's resolved that easily.
Really?
Yeah.
So you think the China issue will be ongoing?
I think it's nothing that is.
So
that
we're
will
all
be better over the next.
So we're all
quarters.
hoping for China to improve for Apple, right? Maybe that's something that's holding the stock up. Is okay. Maybe the outlook for Apple in China gets better, right? Or this upgrade cycle is coming in 2025, and so it's holding the stock up. So if they do enough in the quarters, whether it's the services business, the Mac business, the iPad business, if they do enough to offset iPhone weakness and China weakness, it keeps the stock up. But you think that China issue is going to continue and doesn't?
I think it is not
resolved
that easily. I think it's not Apple Intelligence.
Do you
that's
think
the only issue? And you just said it, and it's even more important now. And we saw it with the report that their services business, which is now I think 21% of the revenues, around that, is growing. And I think that was part of the positive reaction despite its weaknesses, because that is getting a bigger part of overall. So away from just devices and hardware, more to the software. And I think that's a positive. And if that keeps up, that can make up a lot for China. But I don't think that is resolved that easily. I think there's a general consumer shift.
Interesting.
Do you think expectations are going to reflect that, or are we going to keep getting surprised on the downside and it not
No,
perform
I think
well
it's
quarter
pretty
after
well
quarter?
reflected.
You think so?
Yeah.
Do you think it get worse?
It gets worse?
Yeah.
I don't think so either, especially when they introduce it now, and then with the next introduction, they hopefully are set up that everything is kind of in there, what should be in there, and that should help certainly for the next cycle. But so I do not see getting it worse from here. But I'm not sure if that's enough to get back on track on China, to be honest. But we will see.
Yeah. The other one that we haven't really talked about yet is Meta. This one has been, I mean, I feel like the stock is up every single day since the report, which is
oh my god,
pretty
they
incredible.
are like they were the winners of the earnings season, it seems.
But what did you guys have a chance to really look through that? Like what stood out for Meta? Why is the stock going up? What are your thoughts?
I mean, it seems like analysts are really bullish on kind of their AI investment. It seems like capex is really kind of blown up for them, and it seems like that's going in a really positive direction. I think that's kind of the whole story, is their AI spend is paying off, which a lot more than people expected. And analysts love to see that.
Yeah, I think what we saw with Meta is it's the first company, so to speak, to see early positive signs of the AI payoff, so to speak, in their ads business. I think that was a very positive. And even, I mean, they were commenting, hey, we double down on capex and we even increase it more. And especially after investors already getting antsy about, do we see a payoff? How long does it take? DeepSeek coming out right before the big tech boys reported. So that was even more interesting, that they can double down on capex and still get investors' love because they see early signs of the payoff. And then they reported positive on that. The commentary around DeepSeek, around the efficiencies was positive. So I think that was enough here to kind of get the first spark. Hey, we see something from that spend. So that's
yeah. So Meta's starting to incorporate AI into their ad business, whether that's trying to make ads better for the advertisers, right? And kind of connecting the consumer that way. Or they're going to make it easily available so that when they run the analytics, when they create new ads, there's some portion of AI incorporated in it that way too, right? So you can start using AI to make your ads rather than having an entire crew.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
They're doing it that way, but then also the efficiencies of using AI to look through all the data to push ads out to better hone in on who they're trying to advertise to, right? And they're starting to see that benefit, right? Is that the gist of?
I think that's pretty much, I mean, positive report anyways, but I think under the hood, that was the spark that was needed. The first initial, hey, we see a payoff.
We're finally getting a return on our
finally, there is
investment.
something we can latch on, basically, that gets us over. And so they were fine with the double down on capex
because that's
spending.
the biggest question right now. I think a lot of investors have is, when is this return on investment coming?
Yeah.
Like when is the business going to benefit rather than just sending billions of dollars out the door?
Exactly.
When are those billions coming back in?
Exactly.
Right. So Meta being really the first, I mean, Microsoft is kind of there, right? You can incorporate some of their products in the Microsoft Office suite for what is it, like $60 a month. So
sure.
I think that could be if you think about like a big winner, I think Microsoft could be one of the biggest winners, because how many people use Microsoft Office?
Totally.
So it's going to be a slow start for that, but either way. But yeah, Meta is probably the first one to really capitalize on that.
The interesting thing also with Microsoft in their commentary was their forecast for 2025 capex obviously is higher. But they were the first ones I heard from that indicated their capex spending from 2026 should level off. So that was the first indication. Hey, we get it all out there this year, and in 2026 we dial back, and we think we are getting somewhere.
Is it dial back?
I mean, it's far away. We do not know if this happens, right? So take it with a grain of salt. But that was the first commentary that I heard from those companies saying, "Hey, in 2026, we're
not going to spend any more.
Right?
It's still going to be $65 billion.
Let's say that way. But at least kind of see some end at the end of the tunnel, some light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak.
So before we switch to capex, I do want to talk about this for all of these big guys, and we'll talk about DeepSeek and the implications. But Meta and all of these guys. So Meta's gone down this path before of significant spend. And obviously Meta's, the lowest of the four in capex spend. But is there going to be a point where investors are like, you can't keep spending $65 billion? Because we saw that when Meta was investing in the metaverse, and they still are investing a quite significant amount in the metaverse, and it's all losses.
It's awful.
But there was a time that investors were telling Meta to stop spending on the metaverse. Is there going to be a point where investors are like, okay, this is getting out of control? Like, is it if Meta stepped up to 75 billion? Is it if Meta continues to spend 65 billion every year for the next 10 years? Like, what is there a point where investors just try to send a signal to the management teams, like, we need to ratchet this back? And that goes for any of these big companies. Is there a point, or do you think AI is just this thing that people don't really care if we spend money on?
No, I think the gravy train will probably stop at some point. And I'd love to hear your kind of thoughts. If Alphabet is kind of the first one to see that, right? They beat out revenue by over 10% and then increase their capex for fiscal year 25 by a wide margin, and they're getting beat up.
Yep. I think investors won't care about it for 25. I think if we look to 26, if we see the same kind of growth that we saw this year or 25 versus 24, I think investors are going to say, okay, we need to do something different here because we do have DeepSeek out there.
Yep.
Right. They supposedly made their model for $5 million, and these guys are spending, well, $320 billion this year. And not all that's going towards AI, but a significant portion of that is going towards AI and chips and data centers, right? So 5 million versus 320 billion, right? That's a pretty significant difference.
Huge.
So I think investors start caring next year.
I think they do too.
I would say as long as we see something coming back, what we already saw the first indications with Meta, I think they were happy with that, to see that. And I think it depends on what the whole cohort does. And if one like Microsoft is really saying, hey, for 2026, we kind of saw some payoff. It kind of we increase efficiency in the back end, and we do not have to spend that much capex anymore. As soon as the first company says that, then I think there's a whole shift for all others as well.
I think you're right.
So the first company that kind of indicates that there will be a shift for all of them, no matter if they are there or not. Right. I would say,
Okay, so let's switch gears here because let's talk about the capex, because that's probably the thing that everybody is watching the most throughout all of these earnings. Yes, it's great that some of them beat on earnings, some of them beat on revenue, some miss, some whatever.
Sure.
But I think the biggest thing was the outlook for capex. That was what I think everybody is looking for. So let's just run through these numbers really quick. So Meta is going to spend up to 65 billion this year, which is 66% higher than last year. Amazon is going to spend 75 billion, which is up 43% from last year. Microsoft is going to spend 80 billion, which is up 44% from last year. And Amazon is going to spend $100 billion.
Microsoft, you mean, right? The green bar?
Amazon is going to spend $100 billion in 25, which is only 20% over last year. Right. So if you put all those together, it's $320 billion versus the $246 billion from last year, and only $151 billion in 2023. Right. So that's over a double in 2 years. Right. But if we think back 2 weeks ago, we had DeepSeek came out, less chips, lesser performing chips, less energy, $5 million theoretically. So what I want to ask you guys is, what are these guys doing? Like, why are they spending $320 billion on something that you can now make for apparently $5 million? Like, what is the purpose?
So I would say, and again, it's coming out of China, so we have, for disclosure, we do not know exactly how expensive it was at the end of the day. Now it's already coming out that they use OpenAI technology for it, whatever, that they rebuild it on the back of the technology that was built here. So I would say, and we said it, I think 2 podcasts back, it's always easy to rebuild something and make it better, or to innovate and build something out on the green field. So I think that's the huge difference, and they kind of did the dirty work at first. And then it's always easier to make it better.
Right.
Coming.
You've already got a baseline, and so you're trying to create you come in trying to create efficiencies.
Right.
You're not building on top of something, right? When you start to build on, like, when you start stacking different models on top of each other, or like different versions, right? If you come in brand new, you can take the most recent, clear out the rest, and you see it in software all the time, or companies who put stuff on top of, put new software on top of old software on top of old software, and it just gets convoluted and slow and whatnot, right? So that's a good point, David.
I mean, Lisa, I think you're 100% right. I think also part of it is they're trying to keep investors happy. Like, this number is what investors want to see. It's what they expect. And, if all their competitors are doing it, they got to do it too. Otherwise, they're going to get hit with a bunch of questions. So then the question is, when they start to roll that back, if they start to roll it back, are these companies going to be the first ones to do it? Or are they going to receive pressure on their earnings calls from analysts? Hey, we haven't seen a return on our investment on this, billions and billions and billions of dollars of capex spend, right?
My thesis is a little bit different. So I think they're not focused on what is currently out there, right?
Mhm.
They created this generative AI,
Yep.
which is just creating responses, creating pictures, whatever, right? That's
Yep.
that's old news to them at this point.
Yep.
So I think what they're focused on is trying to be the first one to artificial general intelligence, which
Yeah.
is still a theoretical thing, but it makes AI more human-like,
Yep.
right? It's as smart as humans.
Mhm.
It can do what humans can
Yep.
intellectually, right?
Can
It
learn the way
on-
that humans learn.
Yes.
And Yep.
Right. So I think they're more focused on pushing AI forward rather than trying to improve what is currently out there.
And I think you're completely right. And for that exact thing, you still need all that power. You still need all
Yes.
that spend.
And
Yes.
that's why
It's not making something better. It's innovating against something.
And that
new.
was why when we were talking about DeepSeek a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't worried for the
Mm.
NVIDIAs, the Broadcoms, the Oracles, because these guys are going to keep spending. They need these GPUs to do what they want to do to push this
Yeah.
field forward.
Yep.
Right. They don't care about switching chips or downgrading their chips to be more efficient and less more cost effective, right?
Yeah. They want to be the first ones.
Mm.
They don't need a $5 million model, right? Because that $5
Yeah.
million model is not going to get us to the next stage of AI.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you
Yep.
cannot have those chips
Yep.
for what they're trying to do.
Agree.
When they reach AGI, artificial general intelligence, then will there be a pullback? Then will they, kind of, because
So that's a
so if you hit AGI and these models have access to all the information that's ever been put out, right? The growth is instantaneous, theoretically.
so here's the thing is, and the next stages are more theoretical.
Yeah,
right.
of course.
But the next stage is artificial superintelligence, ASI,
Yep.
which is these things are more intelligent than humans. They can do more than what humans can from a intellectual function, right?
And
they could
and you
have some
can't surpass
self-awareness,
them. Yep. Yep.
right?
Yep.
And then the next evolution of that is conscious AI,
Yes.
which is they're smarter than humans. They have self-awareness and
Yep.
they will have emotional intelligence.
Well, this is pretty scary.
Right. So that's the evolution.
That's all theoretical.
That's a theoretical
Yep.
evolution of AI, right?
Especially the consciousness and the emotion, like that is
so
very
that's
far
where
out there.
that's where are these companies, as much as they say, and I think they're accurate in saying they want to keep AI safe, right? I
Yep.
think for the good of humanity, right? When you start talking about conscious AI, but I think the next battle is who can get to artificial general intelligence first. Just like ChatGPT got to generative AI first,
Yep.
and now everybody uses and knows ChatGPT. When you say ChatGPT, everybody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah.
If you say Gemini, I guarantee
People are like, you say Cloud.
half the people don't know
Or
what that is, or
Claude,
Claude,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So it's like whoever gets to that next phase is going
First,
to
yeah.
win.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're focused on, not what DeepSeek is doing.
Do they want Gemini to be the name?
I think they don't. I don't think they care if more DeepSeeks come out. To be honest with you,
And we heard it like at the earnings calls, right? Like how they responded to that, and like Zuckerberg said, "Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it can increase efficiency for us, like that. What is already built."
They're
and
probably already going to
kinda-
incorporate what DeepSeek did into their models and create them.
Yeah, and free some even more capital for the next big
Yes.
thing thereafter. Or Microsoft, they said, "Hey, they have some capacity constraints." That was one part where Azure kind of was missed expectations, and they were like, "Hey, we do not increase that all at once. We wait, because if DeepSeek helps us make our models more efficient, then we do not need as much capacity to to
exactly.
add." So they do it step by step. So I think they are already using it or trying to increase efficiency based on it, learn from that, and kind of be even better going forward.
What's really interesting to me is the acknowledgement that DeepSeek is useful for these companies and that increased efficiency is useful, and yet these capex numbers continue to go through the roof. They're like, we can be more efficient, yes, we can do this better, yes, we can do this cheaper,
but down
but
the
we're
road,
not.
And that's why I don't think they care about it.
No.
Right.
No.
I think they're more focused on the future of it and
Yeah.
pushing it forward.
Yep.
And whoever can get there first.
Yeah.
It's an AI arms race.
Yeah.
It really is. So, all right. enough on that. Switching gears. This is I've talked to a lot of people about this, and it seems to be a very split vote. You either loved it or you hated it, but the Super Bowl halftime show.
Mm-hmm.
Did you? I assume since we all watched the Super Bowl, we watched the halftime show, right?
Yep.
So, Lisa,
Okay.
thoughts?
So, I mean, it was my third Super Bowl, so the
Okay.
third halftime show. So I
Yep.
do not have a lot to compare with. Generally speaking, I did not know that guy, to be honest. That's a little bit embarrassing, maybe, but it's absolutely not my music cup of tea.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I would not listen to it normally. I think so. I do not comment on the music because that's not my style. I cannot comment if it's good or bad.
Yeah.
I think the execution and the dancing and everything, I mean, that is impressive. And I think what I find even more impressive that the performance was the organization behind that. I mean, the players kind of went off the field and they set up the whole thing in 10 minutes.
Yep.
They broke it down in 5 to 10 minutes. And they had a car and everything and kind of big like street lamps or whatever. Like, this is crazy how they do it in such short period of time. So I think that was the most impressive.
So you're more
part to
impressed
me.
with the operations of the halftime show.
You should have
Yes.
seen the one where Katy Perry came out on a lion. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Oh my God. No,
after?
I was very impressed by the operations. That was my highlight, to be honest.
Yeah. I thought it was awesome. I mean, did you see, it might have been later that night or the next day when Drake was performing and he had, fake bullet holes that with smoke coming out the back of his hoodie during his performance to, symbolize like he's been shot, like he's down for the count. You know what I mean? Like it's over kind of thing is kind of what I took away from it. Did you notice Serena Williams in the?
I did not notice her at first, but one of the people that were at the party as well said, "Was that Serena Williams?" And then we were all like, maybe not, right? But she was right.
Yeah.
At the end.
So I mean, yeah, there's obviously if you don't follow Kendrick Lamar and Drake and all the stuff that's going on, you probably didn't like the halftime show. And
I did not know,
but
that's all it was.
Yeah, and I thought it was a good show. I follow it, and I thought the overall thing and the way the cameras were positioned and his performance was great. I don't know that it would have been a great performance to be at when you're actually at the stadium, to be honest, because it was all play for
tiny.
the camera. So, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I don't think it's the best one.
No.
I think personally, and I'll let you guys go, but my favorite one was a couple of years ago when it was Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, 50 Cent, and then Kendrick Lamar was part of that one too. That was by far and away my favorite Super Bowl halftime performance. Do you guys have any? Well, you've only seen 3, I guess.
I just had.
So you have.
That was my third, but 2 years ago, Rihanna was not bad because I think because she had like different levels and she played with the height.
She was getting raised up.
And
really,
I think that was
really
cool
high,
to kind of not everything was on the field on the floor. It was like, I think that was a good part of that.
Yeah. That one was really cool. I thought Samuel L. Jackson kind of tied the whole one. I think he kind of saved the Super Bowl this year. You know what I mean? Coming in and kind of doing like an MC thing.
So is this your favorite?
No, I think I'd go with the Snoop Dogg and Eminem. And if nothing else, like for them, it was kind of weird because they were all stuck in, it felt like a box, you know what I mean? And the production wasn't as dynamic and it wasn't, but you had such big names, you couldn't, it couldn't be like Dr. Dre and then featuring him, you know what I mean? All of these guys were going to get their own Super Bowl at some point or another. So I think that one was the best just for the name recognition. And then the song selection, you know what I mean? It's like you had all the biggest songs. Like the only person you were probably missing was Lil Wayne.
Yep.
And then if you want to go back to talking about beef with this Super Bowl, Lil Wayne was upset that he didn't get a spot. And then Kendrick was kind of rubbing it in his face. And there was kind of an ode to that as well. But I thought this one was good. I think to your point, if you're in the Philly Stadium, and I think I've seen footage of people just kind of sitting there looking around, filming with their phone because it is a production for
the camera.
Yeah.
Because most of the viewers are at home anyways. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys being on. Thanks for all the info.
Yeah.
That was
and
good.
For those of you listening, like and subscribe.
Yep.
And we'll see you guys next week.